Change is hard. How do I know this? Each year, approximately 38% of people make a New Year's resolution. The success rate? 8%. Obviously not great. But this must be a New Year's resolution thing, right? People who are making New Year's resolutions just for the sake of making New Year's resolutions aren't really that committed to making change. But studies show the results don't improve too much when goals are set during the rest of the year, as on average only 30% of people achieve their goals. So while these numbers are fairly discouraging, the good news is there are strategies you can use that will dramatically increase your chances of achieving your goals. But before I get to that, why is it so hard to change? Especially if it's something we want to change. I don't think there's a simple answer to that question, but I believe that it's because, generally speaking, we're creatures of habit. When we have thoughts and behaviors that meet our healthy or unhealthy needs, we tend to stick with them. And when we find something that works, we're reluctant to change. So the key to change is convincing yourself that new thoughts and behaviors can better serve your needs. But how do you do this? Let's start by looking at the two basic driving forces of human behavior: pain and pleasure. Simply put, we tend to make decisions based on our desire to avoid pain or seek pleasure. So if you want to change something in your life, it's helpful to associate it with as much pain as possible, while also creating significant pleasure from engaging in a new pattern of behavior. Let's assume you've targeted an area of your life that you want to change and are highly motivated to do so. How long do you need to hang in there until change takes hold and it becomes a habit? In a 2009 study, Dr. Filippo Lawley and colleagues found that on average, it takes 66 days to change a habit. Overall, smaller changes tend to take less time and bigger changes take more. But that's a pretty short time frame to create lasting change, especially considering that evolution can take thousands of years to make even a minor change and ultimately lead to a better version of ourselves. And I don't know about you, but I'm pretty happy to be walking upright, so change can be worth it. But needless to say, creating lasting change in a relatively short period of time is no easy task. So today, I'm going to discuss a 10-step plan to help create lasting change in any area of your life that you target. For my first step, knowing why you want to change is crucial. Change is hard, so there better be a compelling reason to change, otherwise you're likely to fall short of your goal. For example, if you have a desire to lose weight, which is a common goal I hear from clients, your why should include reasons that make avoiding change painful and the prospect of change pleasurable. So let's start with possible pain examples someone might focus on to help lose weight. Self-talk statements could include things like, I hate it when it feels like I'm getting winded just walking up the stairs, or I'm going to a wedding in 6 months on a tropical island and I want to look good. Or I want to play with my grandchildren when I get older. And if I don't lose weight, that won't be possible. In case you're wondering how I came up with these examples, they're all actual reasons I've heard from people over the years who wanted to lose weight and went on to achieve their goal. And the reason for change doesn't always have to be a positive one. In a 2007 study by Dr. Melanie Tannenbaum and colleagues, they found that the specific type of pain, fear, can help to produce change. This study is particularly compelling because its conclusions were drawn by analyzing 127 studies that tested 27,000 participants over the past 50 years. So it may not sound very pleasant, but fear-based reasons work. And for those of you who prefer a more positive, uplifting approach to establishing your why for making a change, it'll be important to focus on the pleasure you'll gain by achieving that goal. And one effective way to accomplish that goal while opening your mind to change is to engage in a self-affirmation exercise. So, for example, spend 10 minutes each day focusing on what's important to you. And this could include focusing on areas such as physical health, family, mental health, friends, children, career, and so on. But the key is, the area you select, it must be meaningful to you. And once you've selected an area to focus on, it's important to create compelling statements designed to help you seek pleasure and propel you towards your goal. And in sticking with our weight loss example, here would be a few possible why reasons that could work. For instance, it could be, I want to run a marathon. I need to be in peak physical health to enjoy my life to the fullest. I want to look great in a bathing suit while I'm out in public, or maybe you want to look great naked. Ideally, I encourage you to have both pain and pleasure reasons when establishing your why, because you're going to need it to refer to, particularly when the going gets tough, as life routinely does. Second, when it comes to creating change in your life, it helps to pick a better bad time to do it. Now, you've probably heard of the sayings such as, there's no time like the present, or there's never a good time, so you might as well start now. And while I believe it's possible to make change at any time, your chances of making a successful, lasting change decrease exponentially if you pick a difficult time to start. And I'll use an example to highlight my point. When my daughter Alexa was born, she was colicky for the first 10 months of her life. For me, that was possibly the 10 longest months of my life. During that time period, I could have started a plan to make a new change, and if making that change was extremely important, I probably could have made it happen. But without significant leverage, for example, something happened to my health, the health and safety of my family, it would have been extremely difficult to change anything in my life at that time. Instead, I had more meager goals, such as going from one sleep-deprived, irritable day to the next, and praying the colicky phase would just come to an end. So, setting yourself up to succeed when making change is important. Selecting a bad time to make a change, especially if it's difficult, will likely lead to failure to make the change you want and create feelings of discouragement about your inability to make the change. And when you decide to change something, ideally, you want to pursue it once and then turn it into a habit. And the best way to do that is to pick a time when things are somewhat settled in life. For my third suggestion, I'd encourage you to pick one goal to focus on and park the rest. Now, full disclosure, research shows that making multiple changes at once is possible, but the reality is this is very difficult to do. Let's say, for instance, you'd like to quit drinking alcohol, quit smoking, lose weight, and learn a new language. Well, this would be impressive. It's best to start by picking just one thing to change. Why is that? Change is often difficult, and making and maintaining multiple changes at once can be challenging. And with each change you add, there's increased risk that you'll fall prey to this all or nothing thinking. In this case, that would mean thinking, if I can't make all these changes at once, then I might as well give up at everything because I just can't do it. But there's typically plenty of time to make any life changes, and you're likely to be more successful if you focus on one change at a time. For my fourth strategy, I encourage you to write down what you want to change and plan to measure it at various intervals. Something about writing down what you want. It's more than just putting pen to paper, or in the case of many, putting fingers on the touchscreen of a device. It makes it real. It provides a greater sense of commitment. It's there, staring back at you to review regularly as a reminder of what you must do to achieve your goal. When you write it down, it's important to have a baseline measure for where you're starting. For example, if you're attempting to quit smoking, it's important to know how many cigarettes you smoke right now. Also, being specific about what you want to change is important. Sticking with the smoking example, what's the goal? Is it to go from smoking a whole pack of cigarettes to a half pack? Is it to be a non-smoker? This might sound tedious, but you need an end destination if you're planning a goal. Imagine taking a trip and telling the GPS on your phone that you want to go southish. Being too vague isn't good enough for Siri, and it's unlikely to be good enough if you want to make a lasting change. So remember to be specific and write down the plan you intend to follow to create lasting change. For my fifth strategy, it's important to figure out the pattern that isn't working. Whenever a goal is set to make a change, it's usually because something isn't working in life as well as you would like. It could be an area that was good once but has deteriorated, or perhaps it's just an area that needs improvement as life has become more demanding. Regardless, it's usually a pattern of thinking and behaving that you're running that isn't working well enough. For instance, let's say you want to lose 20 pounds. A pattern of eating, such as overeating too many foods full of fat and sugar, or pattern of activity, such as not being active enough or not engaging in the right activity, is likely contributed to the problem. So you need a plan. And with this example, you want to create a plan for eating healthy and exercising. From there, it makes sense to plan for potential influencing factors that could interfere with your goal, because simply having a plan to eat healthy and exercise regularly probably won't be enough. Life throws curveballs and creates resistance whenever you set a goal, so planning for the most obvious ones in advance makes sense. For instance, a few areas you might want to plan for include establishing a set time to have less than healthy foods, because if you plan to never eat junk food again, this is unlikely. Or creating a plan to eat healthy when treats and goodies are all around you, such as when you eat at a restaurant or when coworkers bring desserts to work for everyone to eat. Another one, targeting times when you're most susceptible to deviating from your healthy eating plan. For example, it could be, say, between 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock in the evening when you finally sit down after a stressful day and feel like you deserve a treat. Another one, plan and prepare healthy meals. Establish a time to fit exercise in your day. Get enough sleep so you have the energy to exercise. And create variety with exercise and nutrition to help avoid boredom. You don't need to plan for every hurdle, but it's important to plan for the ones you expect to encounter. Chances are this isn't your first crack at trying to change something. The good news is that you have the advantage of hindsight and can be better prepared for this time. Now for my sixth step in creating change. It's important to plan to deal with obstacles. We touched on this in step 5, but here we're going to examine 4 of the most common obstacles to pursuing pretty much any goal. And these obstacles are so important, they get a section all their own. For the first obstacle, it's crucial to have a plan to stick with your goal when life gets busy. Now, of course, life's always busy, but it tends to go in fits and starts, and sometimes it becomes very busy unexpectedly. And not surprisingly, life often gets busy shortly after we decide to make a change or set a goal. And life does seem to have a sense of humor that way. So when life gets busy, you need to have a plan of attack to stay the course or on whatever it is you intend to change. Second, the busy life, fatigue and a lack of sleep often come with it. When you get tired, it can be difficult to continue pushing forward and pursuing change when you feel wiped out. What is your plan to push through fatigue? What's the plan to minimize fatigue in the first place? You should definitely prepare for this area and consistently monitor it so you don't fall too far off track. Third, it's extremely important to have a plan to deal with negative emotions. So what are negative emotions? It's feeling mad, sad, scared, stressed, and bored would probably cover the 5 most common emotions. If you're dealing with one of these emotions, as we all do at one time or another, it can quickly derail a plan to create change. So to tackle this area, it's helpful to anticipate which negative emotions have interfered with your ability to make changes in the past and develop a plan to manage these emotions successfully. Ideally, you want to develop a plan to quickly identify these thoughts and feelings, as well as an effective strategy to manage your negative emotions. For instance, let's say feeling sad is the emotion that typically derails your progress. It'd be helpful to list common automatic negative thoughts, feelings, or situations that arise so you can be prepared. The next step is to develop a plan to change how you feel by changing your physiology. You always want to start by calming the body before you deal with the brain. This can be accomplished using relaxation techniques such as mindfulness, deep breathing, or self-soothing strategies. Alternatively, you may radically change your physiology by engaging in a short burst of strenuous physical exercise. Typically, you want to pick a strategy that matches your level of distress. For instance, if you're experiencing a fairly mild level of distress, a little deep breathing should help. Strategies such as taking a brisk walk could also help with moderate distress. And with feelings of extreme distress, engaging in a short burst of strenuous exercise or using extreme temperatures such as running your hands under cold water for a short period of time can help. And then once you've changed your physiology, be able to challenge automatic negative thoughts with evidence-based self-talk and prioritize time to focus on what's going well in your life. If a challenging situation is negatively impacting your mood, this is the time to develop a plan to address it, whether that be changing how you think about it or altering your approach to dealing with it. And for the fourth obstacle to be aware of, it's important to resolve any internal conflicts that can interfere with pursuing your goal. And as if life wasn't already complicated enough, we have conflicting thoughts. So what are those? These thoughts occur when we have 2 thoughts that oppose one another. And here be a few examples. I don't want to follow a healthy eating plan, but I still want to lose weight. Or I want to spend all my free time with my family, but I need to exercise. Or I want to quit smoking, but I want to feel uncomfortable. You get the idea. These conflicts must be resolved quickly, otherwise you feel conflicted whenever you attempt to change and pursue a new pattern of behavior. For instance, let's use the time example I just mentioned. You want to exercise regularly, but you're unable to justify the time away from your family. So it's going to be important to create a compelling reason to motivate you to act consistently to shift this thought and possibly belief. And here be a few possibilities. You may decide that not exercising will take time away from your children, as you're less likely to be around as long to enjoy them. Or perhaps it's a realization that exercise needs to be shifted from something you do in your spare time to something that's a must, and you need to take the time from somewhere else in your life. Or perhaps you realize that quality over quantity is the key to spending time with your children. And you make peace that spending time or extra time away from them to exercise does not need to negatively impact the relationship. Rather, it could improve the quality of your relationship is realize that your limited time means the quality of time you spend with your children must improve. Ultimately, it doesn't matter what reason you come up with. It must be compelling enough to have you settle that internal conflict and consistently follow your plan to create change. For my 7th step, when you're making a change, if you fall off course, make it a pit stop. With any change you attempt to make, chances are you won't do it perfectly. In other words, there's a good chance you're going to slip up a time or 2, or 10. The important thing is when, and probably not if, you stumble on the way, make it a pit stop. And don't fall prey to thinking and behavior traps such as the what the hell effect. For those unfamiliar with the term the what the hell effect, it's an actual scientific term used in psychology to describe what happens when we slip up on the way to achieving a goal and then decide to blow it big time. For example, let's say someone's following a healthy eating plan and decides to have a slice of cake that they didn't initially plan to eat. Realizing that they've now blown it, the thought process with the what the hell effect would go something like, I've blown it now. I might as well have another slice of cake, a bowl of ice cream, and a few cookies. Today's just a write-off. I might as well just eat whatever I want. So when the inevitable slip-up does occur, you want to catch it quickly and forgive yourself. Now, this might sound like you're being a little too soft on yourself, but studies show that engaging in a self-affirmation exercise, such as being kind to yourself when you've made a mistake, can help promote change. Next, then you want to focus on recommitting to the change that you want to make and get back at it. And whenever you want to change, the mantra should always be to follow a path of progress. As long as you continue progressing towards your goal, it's working. You'll eventually get to where you need to go. Step number 8. Any change you attempt to make, it's essential to have a timeline. Without one, the change can seem too big and too difficult. For example, let's say someone has an issue with drinking alcohol and they say to themselves, just need to stop drinking forever. Initially, this would feel too big and too daunting to do. Instead, it's better to select a relatively short timeline for starters. And depending on what you're attempting to change, your timeline could be a day, a week, a month, 2 months, or longer. For example, with those who struggle with drinking alcohol, maybe focus on avoiding alcohol 1 day at a time. In contrast, a professional athlete looking to lose 10 pounds to make weight for an upcoming competition might focus on changing the 12-week timeline. But generally speaking, a good rule of thumb when setting a goal is to keep your blocks of time as short as possible. Change always feels more achievable when you chunk time into short intervals. But remember, it's still a good idea to periodically glance at the number 66 on the calendar. And of course, this isn't a magic number. Still, if you can largely maintain a change for 66 days, good research suggests it should become much easier to maintain that change as new thoughts and behaviors become more habitual and less mental energy is required to complete the task. For my 9th step, make time to follow up and assess progress while pursuing your goal. With any change, assessing your progress is the only way to know how well you're doing. For example, if you're attempting to learn new skills, such as a martial art, you can measure progress by achieving a higher belt level or demonstrating progress in that direction. If you're learning how to cross-stitch, you'd expect to be able to do more demanding patterns or complete a project in a shorter amount of time. You get the idea. Without measuring, it's impossible to know if you're moving towards achieving your goal in a timely manner. Now, I know some of you are probably thinking, just get started and see how it goes. I implore you not to fall prey to the dreaded feels like measurement. So what's a feels like measurement? Well, I just made it up, but essentially it means using your best guess at whether or not something's improved rather than using a consistent, reliable form of measurement. For instance, if you want to lose weight, it's much better to use a tape measure to check the size of your waist than to use the my pants feel a bit looser form of measurement. And I realize there's some risk with measuring, as there's a fear of disappointment and ultimately giving up on your goal. However, if you hope successfully to achieve your goal, you're going to need to know the facts. And if you fall short of where you expect to be, that's okay. This needs to be viewed as an opportunity. It's a chance to either recommit or make mid-course corrections and adjustments. And if you're willing to do this, you're likely eventually going to achieve the results you want. And remember, don't fall prey to the expectation that any change you attempt to make should be achieved on your first attempt. Life isn't usually like that. So there's no need to be discouraged if you don't make the change you want on the first attempt. If the change is worth making, be in it for the long haul. And for my 10th and final step for making change, I encourage you to take a little time to celebrate when you achieve your goal. Save the best for last, or at least the easiest for last. It might seem like an unnecessary step, but it's still important. When you successfully make a change, it's important to celebrate. And that's because you want your brain to have a positive association between putting effort into making change and achieving the goal. And of course, when you achieve your goal, celebrate by engaging the old behavior you just changed. For instance, if you want to lose 20 pounds, don't celebrate by going to your favorite restaurant and tearing up the buffet. We're going after lasting change here. But make sure you take time to do something enjoyable. It's going to reward you for all the hard work you just put in. Because hopefully when it's time to set the next goal in your life, your automatic association towards going for it will be positive. So to provide a quick recap, the first strategy to promote change is to know your why. Making consistent change is hard, so it's important to have a strong reason to change, or it's very easy to revert back to the way things were. Second, when you want to change something, it helps to pick a better bad time. And while it's possible to make a change at any time, your chances of creating lasting change are much better when it isn't a particularly stressful, overly demanding time. Next, I encourage you to pick one goal and park the rest. Once again, while it's possible to make multiple changes at once, it's notably more difficult. Instead, if you can focus on one primary area of change and do that until it becomes your new normal, this creates a better setup and a greater chance of success in achieving your next goal. For my fourth strategy, I encourage you to write down what you want to change and have a way to measure it. Once you write or type what you want to change, it makes it real. But from there, it's important to establish where you're starting and have a way to track progress. Otherwise, you won't truly know if things are changing or where you might need to make mid-course corrections in the future. For my fifth strategy, figuring out the pattern that isn't working is important. Whenever a goal is set to make a change, it's usually because a pattern of thinking or behaving isn't working in life. That's why it's important to figure out what that pattern is so you can change it. 6, it's important to have a plan to deal with obstacles. Whenever you set a goal, it's inevitable that obstacles are going to show up. 4 of the most common ones include life getting busy, dealing with fatigue, managing negative emotions, and resolving internal conflict. It's also important to have a plan to tackle these obstacles. 7th, make it a pit stop if you fall off course while pursuing a goal. So inevitable slip-up does occur. You want to catch it quickly, forgive yourself, and recommit to the change you want to make. Next, any change you intend to make, it's important to have a timeline. Without a timeline, not only can it be difficult to get started, but creating change can seem like a large, difficult task that's going to take a long time. For my 9th strategy, take time to track your progress. Without a way to measure progress, it isn't easy to know if you're moving towards achieving your goal on time or if your progress is stalling. For my 10th and final strategy for creating lasting change, I highly encourage you to celebrate when you achieve your goal. Change is hard, so when you're successful, it's important to associate the positive feelings that come with celebrating with making change. Because chances are good, there's something else you're going to want to change in the future, and it'd be helpful to have you associate positive feelings towards making a change. So I hope you found these steps helpful. If you want to learn more about creating lasting change, please contact us at Sullivan Associates Clinical Psychology. If you enjoyed this video, like it, share it, subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching.